Hey everybody, this is Tim Hinton, the Beast of the Marching Arts. Welcome to Marching Arts Now. Wow, do we have an interesting show today. We are live here on all the socials, and it's going to be really interesting because we're going to be having some folks that are winter guard people and some folks that are indoor drumline people, and we're going to have them talk about, compare and contrast what they think about how each of them does what they do and how does the other one different or compare, contrast. It's going to be really interesting. And also, Christopher Rutt is here from California, who's going to be talking about some shows that everybody's buzzing about. So first, let me say hi to everybody. Christopher, how are you?
Hey, how are you, Tim? Nice to see you. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're here. You're going to be back in just a minute to talk about some shows that everybody's loving. But Christopher is going to go away because I'm going to bring in the others that are here waiting. I've got Jonathan Moore, Kirby Kistler. Oh, man, am I messing up these names? Let me try this again. I've got Kris Harris. Kris, say hi.
Hi.
Glad you're here. Jonathan Moore, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm great. Jonathan Moore is here from City Mystique. Kris is here from Paramount, and then Kirby Kistler is here from the both worlds. Kirby, where are you in the world?
Hi, I am in Pennsylvania or New Jersey with my groups Blackwatch and United Percussion.
Very cool. So she has done both of those. So we're going to have an interesting compare and contrast conversation. So thank you guys for being here. I'll get back to you in just a moment, but first I'm going to bring back Christopher Rutt. Christopher, we are going to be talking about some shows that everybody's buzzing about. First off, introduce yourself, please.
So my name is Christopher Rutt, originally from Hershey, Pennsylvania. I've been living in the Rancho Cucamonga area, Southern California, since 2007. I was a consultant with marching bands for a good number of years. And now I am a school services representative for music and arts, servicing the Inland Empire area. I marched with the cadets of Bergen County from 1996 to 1998. I was a part of Blast from 1999 till like 2006, and been out here ever since, just doing my thing.
Very cool. I was about to ask you if that was a cadets Shaco back there, and I'm not even going to ask you how you have that, whether that's legal or not, how you managed to get it.
That was a fundraiser done by the cadets last summer or so, and any chance I can get to get a piece of memorabilia to remind me of the days, it was a worthy fundraiser. That's
very cool. I wish I had a regiment helmet sitting behind me. I have my regiment award that I always have sitting right here, so everybody knows about my regiment alliance and allegiance, but I don't have a helmet. I wonder if they've sold them and I missed that. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Besides, I was so long ago that I was before they wore the plume on them. I was just a dome head. And so I don't know, maybe I can get one of those. All right, we're going to be talking about some shows that everybody likes, and we are going to bring on Jonathan Moore because Jonathan is a percussionist from City Mystique. Jonathan, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Great. So introduce yourself if you would.
Yeah, so my name is Jonathan Moore. This is my 4th season with City Mystique. I started back in 2019, our last, normal year, pre-COVID. And yeah, I've just loved it there.
And what do you do in the drum line?
Yeah, so I'm the center snare. And yeah, it's been a season. It's been a great season so far.
Center snare, and I believe Kris from Paramount is like a super important guy too, but we'll bring him on in a minute and he can tell me. So Jonathan, so glad that you're here. So Christopher, we're going to be talking about some drum shows. Jonathan, I want you guys to weigh in, talk about what you think about it. We have just some short clips. Christopher, where are we going to start?
So out here in Southern California, I'm involved with the SCPA, the Southern California Percussion Alliance. And since we've had an incredible season so far, the first clip is of the independent world line Pulse Percussion doing a lot tune this year. They pulled out Latin Lover from the Cavaliers made famous a couple years ago. And so they brought it back out, cleaned it up a little bit. And this is a clip from their preview show. Shout out to Robert Martinez of Arbase 311 for recording this great clip.
Okay, that's awesome. So by the way, if you're watching us live right now, please comment, see if you have any questions, let us know what you think and tell us where you're watching. Let's watch this first clip. Here we go. Okay, man, I hate to stop that because that is so
Absolutely.
cool. But that is really, really famous. By the way, everybody, before we start talking about that, Stephen McCarrick is here from Rhythm X. Stephen, how are you?
I'm doing well. I wish that my internet was doing as well as I'm doing, but I'm happy to be here with you guys.
The world of the internets, man. It doesn't matter. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for joining us. And Christopher, let's talk about that first clip. That is a famous drum thing. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so it's a famous lot tune made done by the Cavaliers and Mike McIntosh, and John Mapes over at Pulse Percussion likes to pull out some of the more famous lot tunes from the past. And what's interesting about that tune especially is the center snare. Zach Wilson was a student of my wife's. She's a middle school band director in Chino Hills. And she got she introduced Zach to the world of music and started his whole career. So to see him as center snare for Pulse this year is it's really, really great to see him doing his thing.
Yeah. So Jonathan or Stephen, either one of you guys want to comment on that? Some hands.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I just love the tune, just the general feel of it, the Latin groove of it. They definitely hit that. So.
Okay, yeah, so that was very cool. And Stephen, again, is fighting with his internet. So when he gets back, we will bring him back in. Christopher, what's the next clip we're going to watch?
So the second clip is a clip from Etiwanda High School's Scholastic World. This is the very, very beginning of their show called Burn. And this is the first 30 seconds, and it features a very, very, very strong snare line. You just got to see it to really understand.
All right, let's take it all in.
That which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun.
Okay. Wow.
It grabs your attention. The great Brian Nungary and his staff have put together one heck of a show this year for Etiwanda. And it was just so striking to see that come right out of the gate with no music, just those words. And then the snare line comes in and throws down.
All right. So Stephen, you want to weigh in?
I think that I wasn't able to see it, but I know just generally I'm shocked by how great the content that all the high school groups are able to put out nowadays is. Honestly, I think it's a testament to how good all the designers coming out of these world-class groups in the last 10 years are.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, that intro is powerful. I love that. Just the words and just starting out with I'm a snare head. I love anything that starts out with snare drumming. But that was it. It was just powerful how it just instantly went from words to just snare lick, right off the rip. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's quite the powerful introduction for sure. Okay, wow. Good. You're 2 for 2 so far, Christopher. This is good. Who else are we going to talk about?
So the next one I want to talk about is Vista Murrieta High School, also a Scholastic World line. In the world of indoor drumline, we have there's a newer phenomenon called the tom line. And it's been the tom line always kind of doesn't get featured as often as they should. Well, Mike Jackson, is with Vista Murrieta, and he decided to feature the tom line. So this is a short clip from Vista Murrieta's show this year with their tom line featured twice. So let's check it out.
Okay, so I am not a percussionist. I am a percussion enthusiast. And as an arranger, I appreciate percussionists a lot. But explain this whole tom thing to me. Is it just another voice? Tell us about what kind of the drum it is. Talk about it.
Well, from what I've learned over the years with toms is that it started off as a training ground for younger members that want to be in the drum line but couldn't necessarily hang on snare or tenors. So it gives them a chance to develop their hands while still playing on a real drum, so that they can move themselves up to another drum throughout their career. But what Mike Jackson's doing is saying, well, let's use it as a training ground, but then also use it as a voice in the ensemble. And why not give it some notes for on their own? So it's great to see it coming into its own a little bit, and I hope that more groups will feature their tom line in the future.
Jonathan, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, definitely. I've never, in all my years of marching, have seen a tom line feature.
Right.
I admire that, because a lot of people see it as just training grounds, and as it started out as that to an extent, just seeing a feature of just tom lines, and I think they executed it pretty well. So yeah, I admire that.
And we all have to admit, whoa, what is going on with this? Okay, and we all have to admit that Mike Jackson is no slacker. So like he's done a lot of cutting edge things, and so here he is again thinking outside the box, taking it somewhere we haven't gone before. I think it's really, really interesting. If we have one more clip, Christopher, what is that?
So sticking with the Mike Jackson theme, we're moving up to Broken City, Independent World, and this is the beginning of their program. And what is just, well, as we all know, Broken City is pretty incredible with everything they do. But what this clip I'm trying to show is how they integrated the bass drum into the snare line to play the same parts that the snare drum is playing. So you get to hear a different timbre. You see it with bass 1 and certainly with bass 2. So it's pretty incredible to see.
All right, here we go. Okay, wow. I gotta tell you, like Broken City is like the king of the lean in. Like, did you guys find? I found myself like doing this here, sitting here. Did you guys find yourself doing that too?
Oh yeah. It's just from a design standpoint, watching the snares on stage left, and then they bring in bass 1, but then the bass line's in the center, the tenors are in stage right, and how the snares move across the floor, integrate bass 2 into the mix. Like it's great design, it's great energy among the performers, and man, can they play.
Well, no doubt about that. Jonathan, and by the way, everybody, we are doing clips from shows that everybody's buzzing about. Jonathan, center snare of Music City Mystique. What do you have to say?
Yeah. Basically, I want to second everything that Christopher said. I think that was pretty spot on. And I'm a fan of just the integration between sections and just how bass 1 starts out, takes off the drum, swings it back on, goes to join the snare line, plays their rhythm. And then bass 1 and bass 2 stay kneeled, snare line moves over, they all get back up and play their lick together. I think that was pretty cool.
Yeah, really, really interesting. And I mean, it made me want to see more, right? And like, that's what we all want from our shows, right? Like, can you watch a clip and then you can't wait to see the whole thing? I mean, that's I mean, that was certainly in that show. Very cool. Christopher, thank you for sharing these great these clips that everybody's buzzing about.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So now we're going to bring in Kris and Kirby, and we are going to be talking about, we have some guard people, we have some percussion people. We're going to be talking, comparing and contrasting, sharing information about that. And Christopher, I'm going to have you stay here in case Steve is having some internet issues. He keeps coming in and out, unfortunately. So I'll Steve you here. Now, Kirby, why don't you introduce did I already ask you to introduce yourself? I did a little bit, but anything else you want to say? Tell us about your history there.
Sure. So I started out in color guard and did a few years of DCI and WGI on the color guard side, in Crossman, Crown, and Field of View Winter Guard. And then in my last indoor marching season, I marched Cadets Winter Percussion as part of the visual ensemble. So ever since, I've been tech and choreographer for a few color guards and percussion groups. Currently, the Black Watch Winter Guard in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and United Percussion in Camden County.
Very good. Well, thank you for being here. It's great that you sort of have been in both worlds, so it'll be interesting for you to help be a part of our conversation. And then, Kris, tell us about yourself, please.
Hi. Well, I started color guard in Nashville, Tennessee, and then I went on to march drum corps at the Cavaliers for 3 years. And I started marching Paramount in 2017. And I've been there ever since. It's my 6th year, the captain this season. So it's been a good time. Okay.
So guys, I mean, the captain at Paramount, that's not a small job. Has that been stressful? Like, I mean, I would think it would be a lot of responsibility because this is no small guard thing here.
To say the least. No, it hasn't been. I mean, you in a world-class ensemble, everyone's an adult. They're capable of taking care of themselves, and I'm basically just there to help around the troops.
Okay, Jonathan, do you want to weigh in on that? Because being center snare is a lot of responsibility in a top indoor drumline too. Like, does that stress you out at all?
Honestly, Kris hit it right on the head. Like, you're filled, like the whole ensemble is filled with just, adults. There's no kids in the ensemble. So there's no stress or pressure about it. It's just more so like making sure everybody's, on point with everything, whether it comes to the definitions or just the simple things. Like, I think it hasn't been stressful. So I think Kris really hit that on the head.
Okay, well, everybody that's watching this, thanks for watching. We are talking about the marching arts today on Marching Arts Now, and we are talking about the comparing and contrasting of the indoor color guard, indoor percussion. What is it like? What's it different? So, Kris, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to ask you to go first. What do you think is the hardest thing about being in an indoor percussion group?
Probably, I guess it would be kind of the artistic side of it, like. With like color guard performers, we get the whole activity is based around performance. It's based around being a character or being just, I guess, expressive. And like drummers during marching season, you can't even see their faces a lot of the times. And going into winter, that's like that's exactly what's happening. They have to, I guess, become performers in that moment and like actors. And when you haven't really had much practice doing that, that probably would be something difficult to do. And then just even from like a design standpoint of just balancing everything, I guess, because drums are loud on their own outside, and putting all of that inside and just making sure that nothing, I guess, really overtakes anything else, and just making sure that everything like comes together and what's going on the whole time.
Okay, that's a very thoughtful answer. So I'm going to ask Christopher or Jonathan to weigh in. Like, do you agree with that sort of assessment from someone from the outside? Thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely I agree with it. I think and for me personally, I didn't do much outdoor marching, so it's been mostly WGI, which I've always been a WGI guy. So just being able to connect with the audience, perform without a Shako helmet, anything on. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. I also agree with just the balancing of sound. Drums are loud, and you put them inside a really enclosed space, like just a high school gym or anything like that. There's a lot of balance things you have to work with. So definitely that piece of it.
Yeah, I'd say from an acting standpoint, I was fortunate enough to be part of Blast from the very beginning in London till 2006. And during our training, during the time when we were creating the show, we had to learn how to act, because back then in 1999. All of us marched with Shakos, so you never saw our eyes. Now all of a sudden we have to connect with people that are maybe 20 feet away, and to see the evolution of how the activity has grown since we first started with Blast has been absolutely astounding. To see the level of performance, to see the level of commitment, and the roles that these performers take on. And I'm not just talking about drumline. I'm talking especially with color guard, the passion that you can see in their eyes and in their faces as they're doing their, through the legs, eight rifle toss catch thing behind their back on one foot is just astounding. So from an acting standpoint, to see the evolution, to see how these musicians and performers have really owned their craft is just inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. And by the way, thanks for watching. If you're watching, please let us know where you're watching. And we have somebody from Facebook that says that's another reason why indoor percussion is so valuable for young percussionists, a chance to grow as a performer because of the intimate stage setting versus the football field. Kirby, you were there in both worlds. Did you find a difference in what the performers were trying to do in either of those venues?
Yeah, I think so. It's really interesting that there are so many differences between them, but also so many similarities. I think, with the different types of equipment that each type of group uses and the exposure that the performers have out on the floor, there's a really amazing opportunity to use those to exaggerate those characters, like Kris was saying, and to get out of your comfort zone and into the performance zone. So I think really the biggest thing is understanding how a small motion or breath, and sorry, I'm getting sirens outside my window, how a small motion or breath or the height or extension of one motion can come through and really emphasize a moment. And both types of performers have the opportunity to do that.
Kris, you're not a lot about that. What do you want to say anything about that?
I guess just like I said, it's just like even and like adding things like dance performers and color guard members to their shows also help with that. And they are also there to offer advice on things like that because they know what it is. And being in a group with people that have that experience already would probably make it a lot easier and things like that. So.
Okay, so now I'm going to put Jonathan on the spot. Jonathan, as a center snare for City Mystique, I don't know how much you know about color guard, but what do you think is probably the most challenging part of being a color guard performer?
Yeah, so I'll preface this by saying I don't know much about it for obvious reasons. But yeah, I think the hardest part about color guard, just from a percussion perspective, would be just the visual intensity of it all, and just seeing all the body work and everything that goes into it. I can only imagine what a rehearsal looks like as far as cleaning, whether it be rifle, flag, and it amazes me just like the amount of body work and attention and detail that is put in to just, a couple counts. And, we strive for that, obviously, in the percussion side of things, but just seeing the color guard do it and how, by the end of count 2, the rifle has to be like 45, like, all of that stuff is just, I feel like the hardest part of it all is just the extreme attention to detail, even in the little things. And that's something that I envy about the color guard life is like, and I can't relate too much to it, but I can see it, And so, yeah, I think the bottom line is toughest part of it would just be just the visual attention to detail.
Okay, that's really interesting. I think that makes perfect sense. But Christopher, I want you to speak to that because I know that there's a lot of attention to detail in those drum lines as well. But it is a little different because it's so dance oriented. Is that what he means?
I think I think what Jonathan was saying is is accurate. From a drumline perspective, and I should also preface this by saying that I'm a brass player that has lived in the percussion world forever and a day, but I am not. I do not have the hands that Mr. Moore has. But what I can say is that just from a performance standpoint, there is a high level of detail that goes into everything that they do. With color guard, yes, you're manipulating a flag or a rifle or a saber, and you have to show emotion with that. But when you're carrying a 30 or 40-pound drum and you have to do these intricate moves or dance moves, all while balancing on one foot, there's also a big challenge that comes to doing something like that. I'm reminded of Blue Coat's Winter Guard a few years ago when they had the live music on stage with them, and you could see how hard the musicians were working in the back while the ensemble up front was performing. And I think that's a nice little integration of seeing the musicians side of it integrated with the color guard side of it.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Chris, you've been nodding a lot. I want to ask you about that. Let's fill Jonathan in. Anybody else that's a drumline person that doesn't know, like, what is it like at a color guard rehearsal to try to find those visual details? How do you work on it? How meticulous is that?
The hard part about each section goes, well, this is harder than that, but they're all hard for different reasons. But the hard thing about color guard is that none of it is like music it's written down on a piece of paper and you read it and it tells you how to play it and it's all right there for you. But for color guard, it comes out of one person's brain and it gets put onto however many people's bodies and it gets interpreted in different ways. And you have to break it down so that everybody gets this exact same information on how to do it the exact same way. And even then, people are built differently and everyone's going to interpret, like, their body is naturally just going to do something that is even just like minutely different than someone else's. So just I guess the levels of it is just really paying attention to those things as soon as you see it and asking those questions and just making sure that you get the information as quickly as possible. And then, of course, just being able to learn it all quickly, because, again, it comes from one person and it has to go to however many people all at one time. And, of course, there's a deadline and there's timelines to get everything done. So you really you have to make sure you're really on top of your game all the time to be able to get all that stuff. Because, again, it's a ton. And there's all kinds of moving. I mean, just like music. But, again, it's like all those moving parts have to come from somebody to everyone.
That is really, really interesting. By the way, everybody, we're comparing and contrasting the indoor color guard activity with the indoor drumline activity. We have two really smart percussion people and two color guard people, and we're comparing and contrasting. Now, Kirby, I was sure that somebody would say that the hardest thing about color guard is just having to catch your stuff. And I paraphrase that, but like you're throwing this thing, it's doing 8 rotations, you're doing all this stuff underneath it, and then you have to catch. And I mean, if you don't catch, everybody knows. Like, do you want to weigh in on that, Kirby?
Right. Yeah, that's true. I, at least as a performer, going from color guard to a visual ensemble and percussion group, I definitely felt a lot less pressure not having equipment in my hands that I was responsible for. But I think that there's so many ways to interpret choreography, and there's also so much responsibility to getting the hand placements, the weight changes, and all of those things integrated into all the other things that you're coordinating to achieve the equipment responsibility. And percussion also sees a little bit of that too, right? Because especially nowadays, there's way more visual contribution. So at the same time that you're playing all these notes, and the notes get harder and harder every year too, you're also responsible for making sure that your feet are in the right place, you're lining up your shoulders with the person next to you. And those things can stick out too, maybe not as dramatically as a drop, but there are those elements of responsibility too.
So, Christopher, would this be like dropping a stick? Would that be the comparison, or
I mean,
dribbling your Radamacue the wrong. Okay, I'm just gonna be quiet. Go ahead.
I mean, and Jonathan, I think you can speak better to this than I could, but look, clean is clean, right? We all know that. Whenever you see a rifle line throw a 6 and everyone baps it, you know that's clean. You hear a snare line play an integrated role for a long time, and you just hear every little note, you know it's clean. So I think it comes down to dropping a stick. That can be detrimental, but it's how you recover and how you move on that's also important. But it all comes down to the details. It's about how clean you can play, how integrated everyone plays, the timing of it. Just like with color guard, everything is integrated, and it really, at the end of the day, in my opinion, it all comes down to the performance. How you feel, how the performers feel when they're on the floor doing their thing, and how they can relate that to the audience, and how the audience feels while they're watching the performance. That's what makes things memorable to me.
Okay, so Jonathan, here's your opportunity. Say the whole world of color guard is watching right now, and they want to learn from you. So what do you want them to know about indoor drumline that they may not know? Maybe the hardest thing, the biggest challenge. What would you want them to know?
Man, that's a question. I would say that especially with this year, I feel like the toughest part of it has been just the physical side of things. We get a lot of reps during the week, and weekend comes, just reps on reps. And, the drums aren't, I'm not complaining about a snare drum, it's the lightest one in the ensemble, but just the physical side of things, just marching around the floor for hours and hours on end. And just and I talked about the intensity of, visual attention, and how I know that's a really big focus in color guard. Obviously, it's a big focus in percussion. Reason I pointed that out for color guard is just, it's mainly what you see, and yeah, but I feel like the toughest part for percussion is just the physicality of it. And I feel like the drumming piece of it, is mostly mental, and yeah, just marching around the floor, doing whatever step size for how long. Like, there's a lot on your plate that you have to juggle, and whether it be feet with your hands, more body movements while you're playing, like there's a lot to juggle. So yeah, I would say that's the hardest part of it all.
Yeah, there's no question about the simultaneous responsibilities are ridiculous for drum lines, and for all indoor performers, really. Christopher, I thought for sure that Jonathan, that's a great answer, but I always think that to me, as a non-indoor drumline person, the most terrifying part to me is the fact that you have to schlep all this stuff in, plug it in like a minute and a half, and then it has to work. Like that, as a former band director, like just thinking about it right now, I'm starting to sweat. Like
yep.
Isn't that just a terrifying part of it?
Yes, and one of my roles with SCPA and WGI is the timing and penalties judge. I'm the one that everyone hates because I get to see the chaos, the organized chaos for that minute and a half as everyone sets up. And I'm the one on the front sideline going, 1 minute, 2 minutes. I think the most terrifying thing about the indoor drumline scene is the trip from the lot to the gate. Understand it, hoping that the electronics stayed on and they're all still powered up, because once we plug everything in, that's the is it going to work moment. So yeah, it is terrifying. And then also at the end of the show, and this is mainly for the younger groups, is the expediency of getting off the floor or getting past the timing line. That can be a challenge, especially with younger groups, with less experienced groups, that they kind of take their time getting off the floor when I'm sitting there going, you have 10 seconds, it's time to go. Yeah, just making sure everything works and everything's plugged in and ready to go. That's always a challenge. Or the worst part is when our end of things, when the power cord that we offer for the ensembles doesn't work, and then we have to scramble. Seen it, done it, made it happen.
Yeah, and like the whole world of like radio frequencies and stuff, just forget it. Like that's
right.
I mean, I've sat in a lot of marching band shows where, like, we're hearing some walkie-talkie from 2 miles apart. But anyway, that's all very stressful. Kris, I want to give you this opportunity. Okay, if you had all the world of indoor drumline people watching and you wanted them to know something about the world of color guard that you don't think they know, or what you think is the hardest part or anything, what would you want to say?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute my mic. I guess very similarly, like color guard has always been very obviously theatrical. You think about like 90s color guard and how everyone had those giant backdrop sheets like all around the floor, and they had like 50 of them, and you have no idea how they set them all up in 2 minutes. But even now, like we have these giant like triangle props in our show. We have to build them in the gym as we're setting everything up. So that obviously takes a ton of time and is super stressful. But we rehearse those things. We actually practice. We build practice time around getting in and out of the gym and being able to do that in that time, because those things they're huge. Those penalties are detrimental to to whatever. And like, aside from the performance of it all, it is competitive and you want to get as many of those points as you can. And something like not setting up fast enough is like, that's a giveaway of those things. But I guess just the activity as a whole really has just gotten more and more extreme. And as someone who has been in world class for so many years, even just from when I started in world class to now, it's like, how am I even able to keep up with this now? But the fun part about it is that you never really stop getting better at it. You just kind of keep learning new things and being able, and you find out you're actually able to do a lot more than you think you are when you force yourself to. So that's for me is probably the hardest thing about it. It's just,
yeah, it was fantastic. I love that. Yeah, no, I love that very much. Everybody, we're talking about the pros and cons of comparing and contrasting indoor color guard and indoor drumline. I have to tell everybody, you just got your best pro tip. If you're smart enough to be watching this right now, that was it. It was like practice the setup and the enter and the like. It seems like such an obvious thing, but I gotta tell you, as a band director, like I was like, oh, I'd rather have another rep of the closer than make sure that the flags got laid out. Bad choice, everybody. Bad choice. So anyway, all right. So Kris, you just led me to one of the things I was going to ask you, which is, tell us, what's the hardest thing you do in this year's Paramount show? Like, what's that one crazy trick that like? Can you tell us?
You want me to pick one?
Well,
they're all
give us one.
Ridiculous. I do a front walk over 7. I've done that every year I've marched those, so that one's kind of, I guess, classic for me. And then, I mean, literally everything that and like I said, the activity continues to grow. There is no more stand still and throw your toss. Everyone is now like, there has to be something underneath it. In order to keep up and to keep it interesting, eventually. Okay. And it's obviously very impressive to be able to toss really high, stand still, and catch it. But you want to keep everything centered around whatever the story the show is telling. And if there's something you can do under that toss that tells that story, let's do it.
Okay, and may we all who are watching this get to the point in our lives where we can just sort of say that a front walk over 7 is just a regular thing that they do all the time.
Practice
like,
makes
man, are you hearing yourself? No, it's just so amazing. It's so cool. Like the level of expertise that everybody on this call has is just amazing. Kirby, I have not forgotten you. I'm coming to you next. But first, Jonathan, I want to know, can you tell us what is the most challenging moment in this year's Music City Mystique show? Like, what's that moment that like you're like, okay, here it comes. Like this is maybe the hardest thing we're doing this year.
Yeah, honestly. So I'm torn between 2 of them. One of them is just simple step size. Like we have probably the hardest drill in WGI, actually, definitely. And just running around the floor while playing a low triplet roll for a couple counts, it's tough. So I would say step size while also playing a triplet roll. And the second one doesn't seem as hard, but it is. So we have chairs in our show. and just chair placement, it has to be perfect. And we've had so many reps of it as far as like turning the chairs. And we're also wearing hats. So that has to be another aspect of it that's clean, hat angles, all that. And there's a part of the show where we take off the hats and rotate the chairs. And you have to basically rotate the chair, put it back on your hat at the same time. And as simple as that sounds, there's so much in it that could just, one little thing could just mess up the whole rep, And so we've repped that a ton. And yeah, I would say that those two are the top two as far as just hardest. And they don't sound that hard, but in context, it's definitely a little tough.
I love that. And I love that it wasn't like that snare lick, like it was like just the intricacies of how complicated the shows have gotten, seriously, fixing your hat while rotating your chair and having a snare drum on and moving across come on, Shane Gwaltney, come on. All right. But anyway, all right. But we know that your guys and girls can do it. So Kirby, before we finish this conversation, I want you to weigh in. You've heard both sides. You've been on both sides. You've been in color guards. You've performed with an indoor drumline. So what do you want to say to everybody that's watching about the pros and cons, or anything you want them to know about any of this stuff?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is just appreciating what people in other sections within the same activity do. I know color guard people have a lot of appreciation for what brass and percussion do, and vice versa. And to just be able to express that to your peers on the field or on the floor, and to be able to kind of compare and contrast on your own in your own conversations, like sit with someone new at a rehearsal if you get the opportunity, and ask for a quick lesson in like playing a triplet roll from a drummer, or ask for a quick lesson in doing a drop spin or a toss from a color guard person, and try and get a taste for what it's like for performers on the other side, because a lot of times there's tons of similarities and we can all appreciate the amazing effort that everybody puts in.
Christopher, I know you want to weigh in on this.
Yeah, there was a time in Blast history where we had some time when we were developing a part of the show where we created something called Blast University, where each section would learn to do each other's parts. So the visual ensemble would learn how to play a brass instrument, and the horn line would learn how to spin a flag, and we all got to learn how to do all that stuff. And I got to tell you, when you're trying to do just a basic drop spin and you don't really know what you're doing, and you have incredible staff, Rosie Queen was very patient with us, but you really do get to learn how hard it is for each section. I still can't play a triplet roll clean yet, so I'm working on it.
I think that's really cool. And I think that's your second pro tip, everybody, is you need to mingle amongst the sections and have mutual appreciation, and maybe try some of those things that you see the other person doing that you don't know much about. I firmly believe that snare drummers need to try spinning a flag, and flag spinners need to try playing a snare roll. And I think it's really, really healthy. Jonathan, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah. I've tried spinning a flag, didn't go well. Just a lack of reps, I've always found it interesting, just the visual intensity of just spinning a flag, spinning a rifle, however many rotations it has. I'm still not sure how you guys count that, but props to you. And just like, I love seeing it, man. Like, if I could learn how to do it without as many reps as you guys take to do it, I would definitely do it. But yeah, no, it's really interesting to watch. And I feel like a big part of any, production or performance, like a big part of it is, if there were, say, a deaf person in the audience, they can only see what you're doing, they can't hear anything, what would be, really interesting to them. And I feel like color guard does such an amazing job of just keeping the performance energy up, really embodying whatever character you have and just going with it. And I love seeing it. And a lot of people on the percussion side definitely see that. And we try to keep that in mind. If there were a deaf person in the audience, how would they perceive our show? And yeah, that's like just watching color guard groups has really helped us with that as well. So props to you.
I love that. So as we're ending this conversation, Kris, I want to let you weigh in one more time. Have you ever tried playing a drum?
I have actually never tried out of a lack of curiosity because I know I would be bad at it. And unironically, I also still don't really know how to count rotations either. I just know how high it's supposed to go and when it's supposed to be back in my hand. So that's usually how I get through that. But no, I of course think, like, you can hear, like you said, you can hear drums and you can hear those things that are really cool and they make your stomach tingle a little bit. And you hear that and you feel that. So you don't, like, of course, when it is good. But no, I have never wanted to try.
I love that. And Jonathan, you just got part of your answer, which is they really don't count them. They just know how long it's supposed to be up there. And then when they're supposed to catch it.
That's crazy to me, but props to you guys, man. That's yeah, I don't know how you would count that many just in the air, but yeah, it makes sense though. I feel like just with the reps, you'll just learn, you know, this height with this amount of velocity just like produces X amount of spins. So it's really cool.
It's all science, everybody. It's all science. Anyway, everybody, if you watch this, I hope that I thought this was a really, really interesting conversation, comparing and having the different people from the different worlds of indoor drumline, indoor color guard, talking about it. Thought you guys did such a wonderful job today having this conversation. If you're watching this, whether live or on the recording later, and you thought it was really interesting, let people know that it's here. We would love for them to watch this too. This is our live episode of Marching Arts Now for this week in the middle of March 2022. So I'm going to let you each say one short sentence or two in closing that you would want to leave everybody with. Kirby, I'm going to just randomly ask you to go first. What do you want to say to anybody watching? 2 sentences, go.
Make sure you sit with a new section the next time you get a chance to at rehearsal, or go and visit a percussion or color guard show if you are on the opposite end, and check out those performers and cheer them on.
Love that. That's fantastic. Christopher, I'll go to you next. What would you like to say in closing?
Enjoy every moment when you're on the floor. You will miss it when it's gone. And make sure you set up quickly so I don't give you a penalty.
Yes. And so those of us watching don't have disastrous hives. Okay. I don't know where that came from. Kris, you're next. What do you want to say?
I guess eat your Wheaties and don't steal.
Okay, Jonathan, you get the final word today, my man. What do you want to say?
I second what Kris said. And also, if you are a percussion person, go check out some color guard shows. Like, seriously, there's some great ones out there. And you'll learn a lot just from the visual side of things. So, yeah, stay healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for having this conversation. If you're watching, thank you so much for watching, my friend. It's been awesome to spend this time talking about stuff we love. And Christopher, Jonathan, Kirby, and Kris, you guys were awesome. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.